Okay, I think I'm good. Recording. All right. My camera, yeah. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for bearing with us. That was a bit weird technology. I don't know. Okay, I'm assuming you've already filled out the attendance, and people on Zoom as well. I'm sure you have. And if you haven't, we can send the link in the chat. And okay, so this is the intermediate track. So this is lesson 3. So this is week 1, but we're skipping lessons 1 and 2 because that's the basics. Just keep that in mind. It'll come in later when talking about the GitHub repo. So if you didn't go to the info session, this is our track. We're going to be having 5 like classes sessions, and then the week 6 and 7, there's going to be project days. We're going to be helping you guys through the final project. And we're doing Vue.js, obviously. So the learning sessions, they're today 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. every Saturday. And the recording of this will be up at least by tomorrow, so every Sunday. And we have open review hours every Wednesday, 6 to 7. It'll be on Zoom. There's no in-person for that. And these Slack channels every day, you can ask questions, whenever you want. And the teaching staff, so Heidi, he's the leader. He's in the basic room right now, basic track. I'm Sam. That's, is it Nishant? Yeah, Nishant, yeah. And John is in there as well, in the basic track room. And I told some of you this already, but Visual Studio Code, it's a good editor. If you don't have a code editor up already, I recommend that. And if you have another one, it's fine too. And if you are using Visual Studio Code, it's a good extension. Sorry, it's kind of blocking it, but just look up live server in the extensions part of Visual Studio Code. It's good because when you save, it automatically reloads the page, so you don't have to keep refreshing. Yeah, just live server, and just look for that. You just install it. And the demo files are available at this link, and I'll show you this. So this is where the link will take you. And for us, you're going to go to your change branches, because on the master branch there's no demo code. So there's lesson 1, that's for the basic track. And as I said, we're not doing lessons 1 or 2. So you start at lesson 3, and here's all the code for the demos we're doing today. When I was like a student, I guess you would call it, for these, I definitely followed along with the demo code. I copied it and pasted it and used it like as a framework for what I was going to do for the day. So that way you don't have to, hand type all the code I have up here. So sorry, the URL is kind of blocking this, but that's the base URL if you need it. And I can put it in chat actually. All right. So everybody have the link? Good. Okay. All right, so we're gonna have 3 parts of this. Do you have a question, or do you need help getting it? No? Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, so Vue's popular JavaScript library. We can create applications very quickly, and it's very popular for single page applications. And it consists of a shadow DOM. So basically we're not making changes directly to the web page. We're making changes to the shadow DOM, especially a copy of the screen. And then those changes are mirrored to the actual screen. And Vue does this extremely efficiently, way faster than we could do with just like raw JavaScript and HTML. And to add Vue, all you have to do, you add this script tag, you add it in the head section of your HTML. So you just add it within that tag, and we'll be using version 2. There's version 3 out. I haven't used it much, and the content was built on version 2. I'm not sure what the differences are, but I think you can probably use 3. They're both similar, I'm assuming. And yeah, we'll get into this later. And we also provide this in the header section, so you don't need to type that out by hand. Okay, so declarative rendering. So basically, you're going to be telling Vue where to mount within the HTML, because otherwise it won't know, and it doesn't have the scope of the whole file unless you give that to it. So normally you give it a root element with an ID to bind to. it'll be normally it's the ID will be app, so it's going to be normally a div. I have an example here. Show you demo code right now. This is basically what it's going to do. It'll be mounting to here, and then the scope that it has access to is everything inside of here. And I'll go over this more later, but it doesn't have access to anything not nested within that div ID of app. And that's considered the root element of Vue. And so for text formatting, we use this thing called mustache formatting. Basically, you can replace the text with the value of a JavaScript variable. And here it is in action. So these curly braces, these two sets, this mustache formatting, and whatever value these variables hold at runtime, that string or number, whatever we put into the HTML there. So that's what you'll see. And as you can see here, it's mounting to the app ID because they're hashtagging its app. So that's the element that it's binding to. So these are some of the properties of the Vue instance. This is what it's called. Just overall, this wrapping curly braces is the Vue instance. There's the L, which is the mount element, and the data. And these are just like basic variables. No functions go here. We'll get into this more later, but this is just where you define like strings, booleans, integers. I mean, there's not really those for JavaScript, but you know what I mean, yeah. Okay, so demo program 1, I already kind of alluded to this. We will give you this. I mean, none of this really changes. The only thing that changes is the title and the link. Everything else will always stay the same. And here's a script that gives us access to Vue to begin with. So you'll normally just change the title and a link to your CSS that we're using. And so here in the body, as I said before, since Vue is mounting to the app ID, it doesn't have access to the H1 or H2 that are above it. It only has access to what's below it. And that's why it's able to inject the values for the message and other message into the document here with the curly braces. And what's very important to note is we have the script, the JavaScript file put into the body as well. If you don't include this, I won't run the code. And here's a longer look at the JavaScript because I went over it kind of quick. But yeah, there's that. And the CSS is just pretty basic, just centering. And yeah, so here is, sorry, here's a demo. Move this out of the way. Okay, so you saw before, this is where the curly braces were. Vue automatically injected it into the document. And what's cool about Vue is it can make changes in real time. So you can access the Vue instance by doing app and then dot, and you can access any property within the Vue instance. We had message and other message. And we can also change the values in real time. And there you go. So see, you can change it. It doesn't change it like we don't have a server up. So when you reload it, it goes back to the values that were predefined in the JavaScript. That's one of the powers of Vue. You can change stuff in real time. Let's see. I think that's it for demo 1. And sorry, I am kind of going through this kind of quick because I'm assuming you already know the basics, you know, HTML, JavaScript, CSS. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know. Or if you have any questions, let me know. And for checkpoint 1, yeah, okay. So a checkpoint, basically, I'm going to give you guys like 5-10 minutes to add Vue to a page and set some data properties, just like I've shown you. What I recommend is just copying the code given in that demo 1 file and just changing it, playing around with it, trying to figure out how it works. And if you have any questions, just let us know. And yeah, I'll give it about like 5 minutes. Okay, very nice. So next is the Vue directives, because we just basically covered the Vue instance. The Vue can do a lot more. That was just the extreme basics, you know, curly, mustache formatting, text replacement. So now we'll get into the better stuff. So Vue has a lot of ways that it can change data based on event handling and user input handling. And you can use all these with Vue directives. And the V is short for Vue. So here are the 5 Vue directives. And today we will be covering these first 4. and next week we'll be covering V4. So Vbind, it will bind an HTML attribute to the value of a JavaScript variable. And anything can be bound, like any HTML attribute, like source, href title. And if you modify the variable in JavaScript, it will modify the variable's value within the HTML tag. So basically, you know, the source attribute, and I think we have the example. Yeah, the source attribute you can bind using vbind. This is the syntax. And some data is a JavaScript variable. It has to be wrapped in quotation marks. And within your JavaScript, you will declare either the local file address or an online file address. And Vue will insert that, you know, at runtime into the image tag. So it'll display whatever URL you have set as that some data's value, whatever string you put. And next is vif. So vif, it will conditionally render stuff based on the value that you have attached to it. If the condition is true, it will render it, or it will add it to the page if the DOM has already been rendered and it just now updated true, or same thing for false. If at runtime it was true to begin with and then now it's false, then it will be taken out of the DOM. And any child element, so any element nested within that element where the vif is on, it will be removed or added based on if it's true or false. Here's the syntax. So you have the variable wrapped in the quotation marks, and this is the JavaScript variable that you will define in the Vue instance in that data property, same way you just did in that checkpoint. And it does not have to be just one variable. It can be a conditional statement, so, you know, greater than, less than, equal signs, the triple or the double, stuff like that. And so like if this was true and then it was modified to false after the page had already been loaded, then it would disappear, and vice versa. Next is a VModel. It will track the input of a text box and save it to a JavaScript variable. And then you can use that string of letters, number, characters, whatever was entered by the keyboard. You can use that later for other functions and stuff like that. And it's similar to controlled input, if you're familiar with that in other JavaScript libraries. And really, it's only used for input tags. So it can be kind of confusing because sometimes people think it's similar with Vbind, but just know the only time you're going to use it is to capture the message given to you through, you know, text box from the input tag. And changes will be automatically synced, which is cool. You don't need to call a function to get whatever string is sitting in the text box. At that time, it'll update in real time. And I'll show you that in the demo. So let me close these. Okay, so everything here is basically the same. The title changed, the href changed to the new CSS link. The headers are the same, but what's inside the Vue instance is different. So here is the mustache formatting as before. And here's the example of vbind. So let me, okay. So we're binding the source attribute to a JavaScript variable, which I'll show you in a second. And then actually, I'll show you one at a time. So here is the Vue instance. We're binding to the app ID div just as before. And we have all these data properties as before. We're adding a few new ones. So here's the message which will be inserted, as you saw in demo 1, through the mustache braces, curly brackets. And here's the image source. So this is new. So this is what vbind is doing. It is taking the value, the string value from image source, and it is going to be injecting it into this image tag right here in the source attribute. So at runtime, this will be replaced with this string. And then here's can you see me? So this is set to true. So here's vif. So since it's true, this will be rendered at runtime. And then here is VModel. So you have an input message that is the JavaScript variable. We have the input tag because that is the only time you can use VModel. And so it's set to start. You can set it to an empty string. I think that's what I normally set it to, but just for the demo, you had it set to start. Okay, so here. Okay, so here we go. So this is what was in the mustache formatting right here. And here is the image. I can probably walk you through it. Okay, so this was dynamically loaded through the mustache formatting. This, the source, this is from Vbind, so that's very nice. And then here, this div, it had the vif, and within, like there's a source attribute there. Not source, sorry, it's just an attribute. And since it was true, that is rendered, which is good. And then here is start, which was because the input message was set to start to begin with. And the cool thing is it is updated in real time. So see that that's why he had these in curly braces. You can update it in real time. And same thing as before. I didn't mention it. Obviously, you use function, F12 to get to the console. You press these arrows if you cannot see the console to get to it. So if you're, here, it's like cramped, you can see it. So yeah, you can do app. What was the name of the variable? Can you see me? So if you set that to false, then see it's removed automatically in real time. So that is why VF is very useful. And so here's VModel in action. And I think that covers demo 1. Did not cover the CSS, but it's the same. What?
And there's when you're working back, there's one of us announced at the end.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, the other cool thing. Okay, I'll show you. It can dynamically change image source. So if we change the URL, it will change to a different image, which is very nice. And obviously you won't be interacting with your app through the console. This will be done through JavaScript interactions. This is just for the demo. And yeah, I believe that is demo 2. I'll go back to the code. I'd say, I think hopefully this is straightforward. The HTML is what's kind of complicated here. The syntax is a bit complicated. So does anybody have any questions, or is it looking good so far, would you say? Thumbs up if it's good, I guess. Good, good. Okay, cool. All right, so that was demo 2. So next is the VON directive, and this is the event handler. So it'll handle things like button clicks, mouse down, mouse up, hovering states, focus, and it's similar to the button on click property, but it's controlled by Vue. And it's useful if you want to have things happen when other events are triggered. Here's the syntax. So you start with VON, you give the event that you're going to be listening for, and this is the method that will be called whenever that event is triggered. And once again, it needs to be wrapped in the quotation marks. And this right here, the function must be defined in a separate section of the Vue instance. That means, so there was the L property, there's the data property, and then there are more Vue properties, and that is where methods will go. I'll show you in the demo, but that's all that means basically. So, and well, speaking of Vue instance, this is a breakdown of all the things I think we will be covering. There's a lot more of properties offered by Vue, but these are just the 4 we're going to be going over now. Hopefully you're already familiar with L and data. This is what Vue is mounting to and has control of within that element. And then here's where you're defining all of your basic variables, things that don't depend on other variables. They can still be changed later, as you can see. The methods right here, these are used for the event handlers. They connect well with VON because that's what the event trigger is going to be calling. It's going to be calling these methods. So these are functions that they modify the data variables right here. So here, the thing to note, you need to use this to be able to set toggle's value. If you don't, then the JavaScript is going to be looking for the toggle variable within this function's scope. So you need to be looking at the Vue instance scope, which is why you need to use the this keyword whenever you're accessing or setting the variable's value. And then computed, this is also for functions. It's kind of similar, but the only difference is you need a return value. So it depends on data variables. And yeah, the only difference, as I said, methods, you never return anything, because if you do, it becomes a computed value. So all methods, they don't return anything. All they do is move data around. All computed functions will return things. And what's cool in Vue is, even though this function right here, other toggle, it's technically a function, you can treat it as a variable. So you can compare it in conditional statements, in the if statements, stuff like that, which makes it very nice. So this is the Vue instance as a whole. Does anyone have any questions? This is a lot of content kind of dumped at you at once. Hopefully it's straightforward. All right. And here is demo 3. Files up. Okay, let's start with the HTML. So only thing before, so title changed again, link changed, but the big changes, here we have vif toggle. So if the toggle variable is true, then it will be rendered. And if other toggle is true, then this div will be rendered. And then here we have on for the first time. So if the click event is triggered, then we're going to be calling the set toggle method. And once again, we're loading a new script here. Don't forget that. And here is the JavaScript. So I believe this is the same file I covered before. Yeah, it is. And yeah, okay, so the click, so on the click event, when that is triggered, the set toggle function will be called, because that is what we put in the quotes here. And this has an effect on the toggle value, and it also has an effect on the other toggle, the computed properties value, because other toggle, its value, it depends on the toggle value. It's an inverse of each other. And since they're inverses, obviously only one of these two divs will be rendered. In the CSS, the only difference, here's this class of div background. That's just here. It's just setting a background color of a light gray. And let me get to the demo. Okay, so we have, I think this was the mustache formatting, or was it just in there? Yeah, okay. So we have that dynamically loaded, and then we have, if toggle is true, then this is shown with that CSS background right there. And then on the click event, so whenever I click this button, I believe it was the set toggle method is going to be called. And when it's called, the value of toggle will be inversed, meaning the first div will be taken out of the rendered DOM, and then the new one will be added. So that is how on works, along with the Vue instance. So this, I guess, is the most complicated thing we've done so far. Does it seem to make relative sense, everybody? Yeah, okay. Cool. All right. Okay, so we only cover like the very beginning today. I definitely recommend checking out the official documentation. For example, we go there. I believe I put in VElse. I did not cover this yet. I don't even think it took. Oh, we have to click. So here's an example. The documentation here is really good. So I only went over VIF, but it has an example of something other than just a variable being compared in the VIF. And it tells you the syntax of how to use VElse. That way you don't have to use two VIFs one after the other, like I just did in the demo. So VElse, definitely much better to use than two VIFs. Definitely recommend using that. And also has capabilities for else if. So that's the syntax. You can't have anything between these two divs. They have to be one after the other, or else it'll break. And that's just a small example. I definitely recommend checking out the official documentation. Okay, now checkpoint 2. So this is definitely a big step in the complexity of the app that you created today. Basically, you're going to combine the Vue directives that I just talked about, these four, along with the Vue instance, the data, the methods, and the computed properties. You can use those to complete complex actions. And what I did last semester that was very memorable to me was I just added a button, and if you click it, it would change the source link to an image. So just you click a button and it changes what image is displayed. And that's pretty simple, and it wraps a few of the Vue directives together. So if you don't have any ideas for what to make, you can make something like that. Or you can make like a counter, just stuff like that. First of all, you all did good on the checkpoint 2. So very good job on that. And here is what you will do, I think like 6 or 7 weeks from now, you'll start working on this. So this, let me get this out of the way. This is the final project for the intermediate track. So it is similar to the basic track. The only differences are it has functionality for multi-page. It's like a multi-page application. The basic track is just a single page application. And so what's different here is we spend more time exploring Vue router and stuff like that. So we have a description here, and whenever you click edit, watch the URL up here. So it changed pages right there. So that's Vue router doing its work. And here, these are the input fields. And like I said before, so this is using VModel along with the VIF. And since there's not anything in these are rendered. So just an example, what we learned today applied to the final project. Hopefully that makes sense. And then this is very annoying, sorry. If you click home, it takes you back to the root URL. You can add a new item and then save it, and it saves it here. You have finished items. There's no good space for this. Okay, so you can finish these. You can restore them, or you can fully delete them. And the only thing that is not demonstrated in this public demo is the database functionality that we will be covering later in the lessons, because a public database with read and write permissions from anyone is not very smart. So this one, whenever you reload, it does not say the changes that I just changed, but your guys' will. So that is the database component tying in. And that basically sums up the, I guess I didn't show you can edit the description. Okay, so you save it, then view it, and it's updated. So this is just one example. You don't have to do this exactly. I think he's going to set the requirements later and give them out to you, but basically you just need to use all the Vue directives. Let's see what else. The database functionality, we're going to be using Firebase. If you have any experience with that, that's the database we're going to be using. We'll set that up later. And the only thing that separates you guys from the basic track is having the multi-page functionality and it just being a bit more complex overall. So that is the project demo. Yeah, by week 7, so that's like we have 7 weeks here. So week 6 and 7, they're project work days. So this whole time we'll be here to answer you guys' questions and walk you guys through it. And we'll be in office hours, like I said, every Wednesday, 6 to 7 on Zoom. And it's not like you have to be in a rush. It's normally 3 weeks after that week 7 that it will be like due. You can even ask them for an extension. There's really no hard set deadline. So you have a lot of time to work on this. And you can do cool styling if you want as well. This is a good clean styling, but when I do it, I'll probably add some different styling, but that will be just me. But yeah, thank you for coming. Been a really good first week, and here is the form to give feedback. So yeah, any questions, just let us know. I'll be here till time runs out at 5:30. You can continue working on the checkpoints if you want. I think you all got it basically done, so you're free to go if you want. But yeah, thank you all for coming.